Hi everyone, Mike here from Manor Games, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the 10 practical steps to getting your game produced. So, step one is I'm assuming you finished a game. That means you finished designing it, developing it, playtesting it. You've written a rule book and you have sort of all of the components and things that are going to go into your game that need to be produced. That's step one. Step two, which sort of relates to step one, is that once you've finished that game and you've locked in development, you need to create a list of all the components you need. You need a count of all the cards, their dimensions, all the dice colors, materials you want to produce in, the boards, the board size, how many folds it is, all these details and what you're looking for in your game, you're going to want to type out and create and put it in a spreadsheet. So you're going to put the name of the component or the deck, the cards, and create a database, if you will, of everything that you need to go in your game. So step number three is you have your component list. Now you're going to want to make up sort of your art and illustration needs list. So you're going to want to go through each component and break out what pieces of art you need for each thing. So you may have a board and you need the board. You want a background of a town in it or something. You're going to want to write that down and write a little paragraph or sentence in a spreadsheet or Word document about what you sort of want that town to look like so an artist can read over it and get some ideas and sketch up an idea for you. Similarly, with all your decks of cards and all the unique pieces of art you need for that, you're going to want to create a spreadsheet of the card name, maybe a couple of what the card effects do and those types of things. But most importantly, you're going to go through and you're going to write an art description for each card. And then you're going to have that so that you can go out and get an illustrator to go up and actually make all of the art that you're going to be required to produce your game. So that leads into step number four, which is you want to create a job listing and post that job online or on Facebook, wherever, to actually go about hiring an illustrator and graphic designer to meet all the needs that you have on those art description and art requirements lists that you've made. So I do think it's helpful to have, sometimes you can find something that does both illustration and graphic design, but typically if you're me personally, I find it more helpful to go after a graphic designer and illustrator separately and sort of have them work in tandem. That way the illustrator can focus on just the art pieces and the graphic designer can sort of work on tying everything together. But you're going to post that job and go through the hiring process to find an illustrator and graphic designer to deliver on all those outstanding items that you need for your game. Step number five is that you have to collect quotes from manufacturers. So again, going back a few steps, you're going to grab that component listing where you have all the details of everything you want in your board game, all the sizes, box sizes, how many colors it is, whether it's like a one color, logo that you're going to put on a cloth bag, or whether it's a, full color card or board component that goes in your board game. You're going to have all of that stuff listed in a spreadsheet, and you're going to send those quotes out to manufacturers. Now, at the minimum, you're going to want to get 3 different manufacturers to give you a quote, just so you have a good range of things to choose from. But, the more quotes you can get, the more informed you're going to be about what your game is actually going to cost to produce. And you're going to be able to look over that component list, and I always find it's helpful to ask the manufacturer to break out the cost of each line in your spreadsheet so that you know how much all your cards cost, how much this wooden piece costs, how much this custom plastic piece costs, so that if you are going to make any adjustments to the end production of your board game, you have that information. Maybe it's lavish to get one particular component for your board game and it ends up costing 50 cents to $1, which will greatly impact your MSRP, and it's really not an essential piece of the game and not a core mechanism. Maybe that's something that you cut and then you go back to repeat the quoting process. So once you go through that quoting process, you'll select a manufacturer, obviously, and you'll have your pricing sort of locked in for a time. And the next step, our sixth step, is going to be to prepare all of your final files. So at this point, you've gotten all your art pieces back, you are gotten your graphic design work back, and you have InDesign files or, Affinity Publisher files that you're working to make final PDFs and Illustrator files that you're going to send to your manufacturer. It is helpful sometimes to ask your manufacturer what type of files they're looking for. I find that they typically want PDFs of anything that's printed in full color, and maybe some Illustrator files if there's some die cuts going on. And then obviously if you're working with three-dimensional miniatures, they're going to want STL files. But you're going to need to collect all of those files, export everything from whatever computer software you're using to get the final files, and zip them up and send them off to the manufacturer that you've selected from the quoting process. And that's our step 7 actually, which is once you've prepared all those files, you actually have to export them all, select your manufacturer, and send them to them to actually start the pre-production and production phase of getting your game produced. So what's going to happen is you're going to send all those files to your manufacturer. You're going to go back and forth with them, prepping those files. They're going to find mistakes. They're going to send you proofs of everything that you sent them saying, are you sure everything's okay? And you're going to approve everything digitally first. Once you approve everything digitally, they will ship you a sample, a pre-production sample, which means they're not quite setting up the machines for offset printing. It's going to be a digital prototype, if you will, based on digital printing. But they'll send you what is essentially a very, very, very nice prototype of your board game to you. And then you're going to have to look through everything and approve it. Now, at this point in time, you may come across things that aren't quite right or that you're not ready to approve. And at that point, you're going to sort of iterate between the previous step and this one. We're going to be going back and forth, approving digital files, finding mistakes in digital files, prepping and sending new files, getting pre-production samples of things, maybe a dice, the color is off, sending them back the correct Pantone color you want, or letting them know what's wrong about whatever component you're looking at, resending them, there's a typo on a card that you see in the pre-production copy, sending them another copy. But there's some back and forth between prepping the files and getting everything approved in the pre-approval process. But that's an important thing to focus on, because once you get the samples and approve them, you're going to make sure you catch as much as you can before you go to the next process, which is step number 9, which is a final check of the production copy. So once you've gone back and forth in the pre-production process and approved everything, your manufacturer is going to send you an early finished game off of the production line. And that is your absolute final step to catch any sort of production errors. And oftentimes, if you've missed something at this point, it's going to cost you a lot of money to fix it, because maybe 500 games have already been produced, or something along the line is going to be swapped out and swapped back in to catch the mistake. But you will have one final chance to check all of your final production copy before everything is locked in and all your games are in cartons and cases ready to ship across the ocean. And then last but not least, we have the final step of actually producing your board game, which is getting your games from the factory into shipping containers and on freight boats, and then sending those games around the world to whatever shipping hubs you're using. There's plenty of great resources out there, and I'll try to link to some in the bottom about not only what freight people are out there and what freight resources are out there to find shipping partners and shipping hubs, but also we'll link to some articles that we find about creating these spreadsheets and component listings to send out to manufacturers for quotes. So if you have any questions, look in the show notes or video notes below in the comments section. We'll try to post links to these things as helpful as possible. But obviously, once the manufacturer finishes the game, the final step is to freight the games to you, whether it's a distributor in the United States that's going to get them to get your games into stores, or whether you're shipping to lots of different shipping hubs around the world, so you can ship your games to, again, ship your games one final step, ship them from the hubs to your backers, Kickstarter backers or pre-orders. So that's it for now. If you've enjoyed this video and talking about board game business and practical tips for getting your board game produced or your board game business started, please like and subscribe to the video. It means the world to me. Feel free to leave any comments below. And until then, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.